Good day and welcome to the special broadcast. I'm Zanella Morrison. Safety remains a priority in the mining sector. Despite an overall 75% decline in fatalities between 1995 and 2021, in August 2022, South Africa recorded 8 fatalities. In July, 2021 Zero Harm Forum and the Minerals Council Board approved the Fall of Ground Action Plan project, which includes a financial investment of 46 million over 5 years. This project was to be implemented in 2022 with various mining professional associations, organized labor, regulators and research institutions coming together. So today I'm joined by a panel of experts who will discuss the health and safety of mines and mine workers and the impact of the future of mines in South Africa. They will unpack methods and steps mines are taking to increase the safety at mines and the role of technology to speed up this process. Let's meet our panel of experts. Francisco Baudrand, CEO of NIX Africa. Mongezi Veti, Executive Head, Sustainability, Exxaro. Christina Evans, Associate Director, Smart Mining, PwC. Yapi Fullard, CEO, Glencore Ferroalloys and Chair of Minerals Council, CEO, Zero Harm Forum. And I want to start off this conversation really looking at the environment of mining. Safety, there are a number of elements. Safety is just but one of them. We are going to touch on technology today, and we're going to really hear what CEOs from the sector have to say about the role that they have to play in ensuring the safety of miners, but also the sustainability of mining as a practice. And maybe Mongezi, I can start off with you. I think as the head of sustainability, what is the big picture of what concerns us today that's going to secure mining going into the future?
Well, Zanele, what's the top of mind for mining companies right now? Having achieved a phenomenal achievement in terms of reducing the fatalities in the industry. Right now, what is of critical importance for us is consistency, in that we need to integrate all our safety and health strategies into the strategies of organization in such a way that in any strategic and review of strategies in all the corporates, health and safety play a central role. Because right now, we need to step up our efforts in ensuring that the consistency and the gains that we've made in the past, given the historical perspective of our industry, that we maintain this phenomenal performance that has just been reported in 2022. And it depends on us in the way that we're going to drive this strategy of collaborating with all the mining companies in South Africa, whether you're talking hard rock, soft rock, even the non-ferrous mining companies. An integrated approach that seeks to include everybody is absolutely necessary. But there are other issues of importance that we are focusing on, for instance, which I'm quite certain that later in the conversation we will deal with.
Delve deeper into them. Yeah. And I think it's easy to understand Exxaro's role and Exxaro's need to ensure that the safety numbers and the number of fatalities remain extremely poor. But I want to come to you, Francisco. As the CEO of NIX Africa, it's important to you more than anybody else to really look at the role that you are playing in ensuring that there's market improvement year on year. But speak to me of what your organization does and what's important to you.
Okay, thank you. Sanele, first of all, it's important because we are a key supplier for the mining industry, right? So we are an explosive company. Well, our company was born in Chile, so we are a Chilean company in NIX Africa. We are the subsidiary of NIX Chile. So we produce explosives and we supply minings and we do the blasts in the mines. So taking your question, for us, safety is first in everything that we do, and because we are part of the mining industry, we're a key supplier. So we have a value that we say our priority is life, so safety is first. But also, when you talk about safety, you have to think about innovation, you have to think about technology. And in that sense, we have taken some steps forward in being maybe the leaders in starting doing teleoperations and robotics to provide explosives, to supply explosives and blast. That for us is a key differentiator with other players, and I think it's going in the right way in terms of safety. But just to complement, it's not only about safety, because this comes, the origin of thinking about teleoperation was to humanize mining. And humanized mining has two sides. One side is, safety. We really want to expose less people in the ground, and of course with teleoperation and robotics, you will do that. But also because we want to increase the quality of life of our customers and our employees. And the working in a mine is very tough. So I was with the colleagues, we're talking before, for example, in Chile, in an open cast mine, you can be near the Andes Mountains with snow, blasting with 40 degrees below 0 centigrade. And underground, I've been here in a couple of times in underground, in the narrow reef. So, the tough, it's a very tough environment. So also the humanized mining has to do with taking the people off the ground, but also for quality of life.
Yeah. Mining comes with such massive responsibility because it's about not just it's the human life, and then it's the society that actually lives and supports their families through this very, very difficult industry. So we have lots to talk about. And the CEOs got together, and I want to move through to one of my other guests, my guest online, Yapi Fullard. Yapi's joining us. He's at the airport in a special suite, leaving for the mining Indaba, I think. Yapi, we're right behind you, we're following. But Yapi, as the chair of Minerals at the council, you have a policy around zero harm. What is bringing all these CEOs together, and how much of a concerted effort and direct targets are you setting to improve miners and mining health?
Thank you very much, Anele. First of all, you did call the panel. We are a couple of specialists. I think that perhaps more, the word for me is more passionate specialist. And I think that's where the biggest drives comes in for me. I mean, I'm also the CEO of Glencore Alloys, responsible for some 15,000 people. So safety for us it is our number one value as Glencore. But going over to the CEO Zero Harm is where all the mining houses comes together through the Minerals Council, and then we come up with action plans. And what we've done is that we've started with this CEO Zero Harm forum some years ago, and we also initiated what we call Kumbula Ikaya, and that means come home safe. So it's very important for us that our people, every single day that they go into the working phases, that they return home safely. And safety is like sweeping water uphill. If you stop sweeping the water, you are going to have a problem. And so we've got a huge amount of initiatives that we do drive. So obviously, if you have a look at the history of the fatalities in the industry over the last couple of years, the best that we've ever achieved, unfortunately, you cannot call it an achievement, because the achievement should be zero. It's zero harm. That's the focus. But a couple of years ago, we reached a milestone of 51 fatalities in a year. And then unfortunately from there, we regressed. And last year, or the year 2021, we were up to 74. And it is very hard, heartening to say that last year was the lowest, fatality rate that we ever have seen. We had 49 fatalities in the industry, which is the lowest in the mining industry ever. Yet again, it's not an achievement. I just want to make it crystal clear that it is zero harm is our focus. And I also want to just express the amount of work that all the CEOs are putting in. And this morning, 7 o'clock this morning, by the way, all the CEOs from all the mining houses came together, and we acknowledged that today, as the 1st of February, it's the first time in the mining industry's history that in the month of January, we had 0 fatalities. 0. Normally, we would average, let's say, 5 per year in a specific month. So that is for January specific. So it just shows you the amount of work and dedication and action plans that we all have put in. And it's not only the mining houses. I must make it crystal clear here that it's a tripartite and alliance. And yesterday, the minister, Mr. Gwedi Mantashe, also released all the statistics. And I mean, I was present there, and it was so fantastic to see. So there are 3 parts into the tripartite, and that is the employees. So that means it's our people, represented by the unions, the employers, which are represented by the CEOs, and then also the government through the minister and also the chief inspector of mines. So 3 parties coming together, one goal, 0 harm. And it was absolutely a fantastic occasion yesterday to experience the vibe and like I said, the achievement, because it's also important to mention that we did go below 50. So we must acknowledge, but we must also further acknowledge that it's not good enough yet.
Absolutely. It's no small target at all, but I think it's critical. And we're going to come back and have the conversation around the minister's conversation, and I think the commitment to zero harm. Technology comes in and plays a really interesting role, so I'm really keen to hear about that. And this goes on to you, Christine, as our next guest. Christina, the research from the various CEOs and the plans and what they're doing to pull together solutions that we have not yet seen. So technology is going to help us to leap into the future. What information have you gathered as part of your research with the various CEOs?
Thank you. So I think we've had 2 researchers now, one for 2021, and we've just concluded the 2023, where we have interviewed a lot of CFOs and asking them, what is your role? What do you see the role of technology within mining? And that safety is part of technology, and it's in everything that we do. What we have found is some very interesting shift in the focus of how technology will play a part. And I want to do some comparison of what we found in the previous study and what we found now. So previously we found that the drive of technology and implementation within the mining sector primarily came from the CEO and the CEO's desk, where now the shift has moved, where the CEO is starting to play a supportive role, an advisory role, but the value is realized by the C-suite. So we found that there's a lot of technologies, and the individuals don't know, or the mining companies don't know how to implement or where to start. What is best fit for your company, and normally they will just do what the neighboring mine is doing and trying to get benefits from that, or they will just implement a lot of technologies. But we found in this study that there's a definite roadmap and a definite focus. There's a plan that's set out with quite a lot of detail, and there's also more budget that's allocated to the technology going forward.
Really, the gates of technology have opened. I mean, so many industries are now so much more open to fast, because we could see what we can do with technology. I think the pandemic really helped us to gain a perspective. But technology also comes with a little bit of uncertainty, right? People become uncertain about what it means for them as individuals in the future. How are you as Exxaro thinking about technology incorporating your suppliers, incorporating enterprise development? Do you see technology as an inclusive tool to change?
Precisely. Zanele. Technology in our quest to zero harm is paramount in that it is a concept that has been embedded in the process of mining, right from blasting up to the stockpiling of our own product. And we use technology in every part of our own operation. Whether you're talking the blastings, and Francisco was referring to, in terms of autonomous drilling that we've implemented in our GG operation. And you move on and go to shoveling and trucking of our own product up to the discards and then the processing plants, etc. And one of the aspects that as the organization we have implemented, which is unique to us, is a concept of backfilling. So we've put some considerable investment of backfilling within the same process of mining, taking the discard back to the pit so that we don't defer or rather postpone the process of rehabilitation at the end. In your question, you have also mentioned issues of enterprise supplier development. In the context of transitioning from high carbon economy to low carbon economy, we undoubtedly believe that it is necessary for us to make sure that we leave no one behind. And in that process, we decided to invest in a fund that is dedicated in facilitating and accelerate the process of entrepreneurship in the communities where we operate. And we have increased that fund from just 50 million in 2018 to about 600 million rand. And that money, we recycle it amongst the entrepreneurs. Some of them are actually in our own procurement supply as our own suppliers, but others are actually independent business people, whether you're talking technology out there, and even a spaza shop that has got a potential to can develop. So we have just decided to extend our tentacles even sometimes beyond the areas where we operate, because we believe that our footprint cuts across South Africa.
Yeah. So really contributing and building the value chain that supports and feeds the mine around it. So we'll come back and unpack that a little bit more. Sure. But Francisco, I want you to come in, right?
I wanted to say thanks. Thank you, Sanel. No, I want to take in those ideas. Just two things that I want to maybe add is one, when we talk about technology, we talk that we have a value very important that is life. We have another value that is very important that is in innovation and entrepreneurship. So for us also, technology is finally, is a tool that you use after you have an innovative process to create different things. And I was thinking, because of the same, one of our strategies in that sense is to partner with our customers, to understand their needs, and to come up with different value-added solutions that are able to solve problems that most of us think that are problems that will stay there forever. I have a couple of examples, but we have already brought to South Africa some of our products that we created in Chile that can give, for example, a product which is a bulk emulsion that has much more power of fragmentation. So, of course, when you have a good fragmentation, then you have much less cost on the plant because you have a good fragmentation. Then we have a low density product which is very low energy. With low energy, you're able to have very good stability of the walls, but also, for example, in the case of coal, you can use it in production. So you can use much less explosive, which is a contribution for for them. And the second topic that I wanted to add is when we talk about carbon footprint, I want to highlight that as NIX, we are taking also some lead in terms of green ammonia. So in Chile, NIX has the largest ammonia nitrate plant of the world. It's 850,000 tons per year. And we already start building a pilot plant that will produce green ammonia. So today in Chile, we import all the ammonia and represent 90% of our carbon footprint. So of course, if we have green ammonia, we're reducing 90% of the carbon footprint. So this green ammonia will be receiving hydrogen, and that hydrogen will be produced with solar energy, which we have a lot of solar energy in Chile. So I think both in that sense, all the companies in different aspects are looking to that future of going green.
And I think the big question is, how are we taking people with us? So how do people fit into some of these solutions, or how are we improving the lives of the people that are working in the industry? So maybe let's come back to that, because I want us to just really be specific. Let's talk about women. Let's talk about, you know, just the mental and the physical health and what have you. But I want to come back to you, Yapi, and ask you a quick question. When it comes to the Fall of Ground Action Plan, what does that consist of? So what is the clarity that you and perhaps the minister is showing on this actual plan?
Yeah, thank you, Zanele. I think what is very important is that if you have a look at, for instance, what happened last year versus the previous year, we were able to reduce the fatalities from 22 in 2021 down to 6 last year. Now, if you have a look at that, that is a tremendous reduction. And the fact of the matter is, how did we do that? And so what we've done through the CEO Zero Harm is we've adopted a strategy where we focus on 6 pillars. And these 6 pillars specifically relates to fall of ground. And the first one talks about adoption. And I think some of the previous speakers also talked about the adoption of, let's say, one mine is doing a specific intervention, like, for instance, netting and bolting. How do you take that right through the whole mining industry? You can't just take it as is and put it into the next mine and into the next mine. It's about the adoption and the way that these leading practices are adopted. So that is a specific pillar that we are focusing on, and it's how do you bring the people up to speed of really adopting that technology. And it comes into also talking to, you know, technology. Technology, you can't just roll out. It is, are you operational ready for that specific technology or not? So that's a very important point. The second one talks about research and development. And I think Francisco also talked about the blasting patterns. I mean, it's important that the way that you drill and blast your underground workings or narrow stope or mining methodologies, the better you do the drilling and blasting, the less energy into you know, the rock, and that means that all of a sudden it becomes much safer. So that's the second pillar. The third pillar talks about skills development. Very important that you take your people with it. And I think, Anela, you also asked that specific question on how do you take your people with? And the only way that you can do it is to upskill your people, and then also your specialists, like your rock engineers. Then we look at also policy issues, and this is where the DMRE comes in, is where we come collaboratively, we sit together. I mean, myself and the Chief Inspector of Mines have quarterly sessions now where we talk about specific policies and how we can adopt it and also, you know, implement it. And then we look at obviously the culture of zero harm production. We talked about yesterday, very, very interesting, and I will never forget this, is that the minister said something yesterday. He said, the workers take investments and turns that into wealth. The workers takes investments and turns that into wealth. And this is so true. I mean, we talked about technology and how expensive technology is. And in some cases it is, but if you do it properly, it is wealth creation. And I think we should not underestimate that. And then lastly, or the last pillar talks about implementation and also how do you monitor it. I think through the Minerals Council, and this is where the Minerals Council plays a major role, is to ensure that all the mining houses adopt certain leading practices and we roll it out. If we do not do that, we do not have that collaborative approach.
Thank you so much. Yapi, I think you've touched on one of the biggest challenges facing all industries is collaboration and stakeholder engagement. But it seems like it's a sector that's very much unified around the same goals. What was the conversation or the alignment that you heard through the research that you've done? And that's the one part. And how easily are they communicating and syncing together? And what role is data playing in making them have an awareness of what needs to be done and where? So a lot of questions, but you take it.
So let me start from the top. I think one of the things that we found, or that we heard, is that we have to work together with manufacturers, suppliers, contractors, and mining. Safety is not mining's responsibility; it's all of our responsibility, and we all have to work together. If the manufacturer is developing equipment, why don't we equip it with detection software right from the start? We have to work with the mine and to help them to achieve their safety. So that was a very important thing that came out, that it's not a mining struggle, but it's everybody's struggle that we need to work with. One of the biggest things that I want to touch on is the data. I think we're not doing enough with data. I think we can do more, and it can really benefit our community in mining. So I want to use an example. There's a vast amount of data that's currently out there, and we primarily use it for reporting and understanding what's going on. If we can change that to predictive, so that we can start to intervene before something happens, that will change the narrative. And let's go to the mine. I mean, data is collected everywhere. It's collected from your HR to your rock engineers to geology. But everybody goes back and they work in their own silos, own system. Those data is not collaborated so that we can start to get insights. And if it is, it's very fragmented. It's a very small portion. We still have data that's collected on manual papers. So what that means is that you fill it in and you go and file it, and that information gets lost. And also a lot of time is spent after the fact, investigating incidents and see what happened. Now imagine we can take all that information and we throw it into one area where we can start to analyze it. We add algorithms to it, we add machine learnings to it, and then AI, so that we can start to predict something that can happen, because we are learning through people behavior and input factors and scenarios, and then we can intervene before something happens. And we believe that 2023 will be the year where we are really going to focus on making sure that data works for us and help us in achieving zero harm.
Yeah. Data everywhere you go is probably one of the most difficult things, because everybody, even the input of data, it's in different forms and formats everywhere you go. But what I want you to perhaps do for us, for me, Francisco, and you can add one of your own things, is give it to me in the experience form. So the technology is sounds complex. It's easy, right? But how does it change the environment itself? Do we see mining change from an experience point of view, from the miner who has to go underground? How does technology start to, I understand it lessens their proximity to risk is one. How else does it start to really just improve and bring humanity into the practice?
Well, I think I give first ideas of what we think as a company in terms of have less people in the ground, by having teleoperated. By the way, we believe that mines will be 100% teleoperated through time. So we want to take a lead on that. That is important. That will happen. I don't know if it's happening in 10 years or in 20, but it will happen. But it will go in phases. Of course, and I take also what Javi said about upskilling. So the first stage is we upskill our own employees in order to be able to teleoperate the MMU, which is the mobile mixing unit, instead of drive the MMU in the ground, right? But then, in some moment, and also we talk about artificial intelligence, there's a moment in which we expect to have that technology in which robotics will be learning it by itself and will be capable to be doing a lot of tasks that today human beings do. But that's a long term. So in the medium term, works will be there, but there will be an upskill. In the long term, our view is that the technology will really take many of the current jobs, but they will create another jobs. And that also will have more skills. You will need the skills to program computers in order to be, continue giving more data or even, so it's everything goes aligned. I'm very excited to the thinking about the journey of technology, teleoperation, but also looking after job and people. I don't think they go.
It's not a compromise. It's not one or the other.
They go together. We really believe, and we are working with our professionals. We are trying to develop our people. That's part of our DNA. So this is for me very aligned.
Yeah.
Maybe the kids of today's employees, as I say, will be studying, science instead of being upskilling in terms of driving a truck. And that is because also if you have less accidents, if you are able to take the people out of the ground, and you have to be able to create solutions that is making more efficient the mining operations, well, basically we will have more profitability. That makes more profitability for the country. So if the country develops more, also gives more opportunities for the next generations to be professionals. So today maybe the parents are not. So that's why I see this journey like very aligned.
You took my lines. I mean, those were going to be my lines.
Sorry. Sorry, I like. Maybe I can sit there.
Yeah, we can stop. But the point that I was, the point that you said in the end around the economic development, we have to look at it from a country perspective, because mining is quite important for the country. Mining is a critically important industry for the country. How do we think about mining's contribution in helping and really partnering with other streams in the, be it government, be it international organizations? How does mining start to directly play a role in the economic development where we need it the most? And it might not be direct, but let me pose the question to you.
Yes, I think you now touching in the concept that has recently been introduced, which is circular economy. Which simply means, what do you do with your waste? What do you do with your discard? Because we are acutely aware of the fact that mining is the cornerstone of South Africa's economy, for instance. And that if we're not going to take advantage of what we have in the past considered as discard, today we're talking of reuse, extracting value out of what we call discard in the past for other processes, whether it's your supplier or customer, or developing a product from what was considered a discard, so that you create businesses that would in turn employ other people. And it goes hand in hand with the concept of introducing technology, because that in itself, it invokes fear and anxiety on our employees. And you got to find a way of packaging it such that it is not threatful to the employees by providing other opportunities in your value chain, so that people can be upskilled or redirected in other revenue streams. And you can also do that by encouraging them to take smaller businesses in your companies, so that then there is an economic livelihood that is actually created right across.
But I really still think, though, that we need to hear more around the education, contribution to education. We're not doing a great job of providing the right level of education, the right kind of training. The FET colleges are closed. There's no specific skills that people are being given that enables them to have a skill or a competency, be it in recycling, be it in utilization of waste or byproducts. How do we get back those technical competencies that people can utilize to create deep businesses and not, again, small enterprises that grow but go nowhere.
Yes, you're quite right. There is a definite need for us to influence, for instance, universities, because an engineering degree that was done in 1980, it cannot never be the same today. There are so many other what we considered peripheral issues in the mining industry at that time. And those issues have turned from being peripheral and central in our operations. That education component has to be dynamic and move with all the processes and the paradigm shifts that are paramount in our processes. So part of that is then to introduce such things such as academy, so that then you redirect people with some form of education, short courses that would actually upskill them to begin to understand the concepts of entrepreneurship, how to run a business and be independent from it as a person, and walk the journey with those people. And in so doing, then we believe that you are impacting society in a way that brings everyone into the economic mainstream.
I think we have a challenge there. We have a challenge between universities and institutions and the creation of relevant qualifications. It's a catch-up game, but academic has got to be open to the conversations you're having around what's required around your engineers and other skills that lie around that. But that's not the topic for today. I want to jump onto the topic of ESG. And Yapi, I'm coming to you. Is this a conversation that's on the table with the other CEOs? And if ESG is on the table, we know as a developing country, we are challenged in terms of what the adjustment we can make and the saving on carbon footprint. What is the conversation around CEOs when it comes to us meeting or setting reasonable targets for carbon reduction?
Yeah, thank you, Zanele. I think first of all, if it's appropriate, I just quickly want to touch on the technology, if you don't mind. You did ask about practical implications or solutions. I mean, if I think about access control, one of the biggest concerns in South Africa, the challenges that we are facing would be illegal mining. How many people are going underground that are illegal and they are not supposed to be there? So if you think about technology and you think about biometrics and you think about access control cards that we have now introduced, it just makes it so much easier to make sure that the appropriate people can go underground, people that's trained and competent, or even into any working area. So a practical example for me from technology perspective would be that. A second one would be collision avoidance technology. Now, last year, we had still 17 fatalities that occurred in trackless mobile machines. The previous year, it was 16. So it's actually a regression. So although we've done fantastic in fall of ground, on trackless mobile machines, we did not arrive yet. So technology can and will play a major role there. And many of the mining companies already have installed these technologies in terms of that. So it's a very important factor how technology can play a significant role in reducing fatalities. Also, just to come back in terms of the skills, you did ask about the skills. Some of the mining houses are going so far now as to even sending students for 4IR qualifications. So that's how advanced the mining industry are now becoming. We also have established incubation hubs, so whereby we can take young entrepreneurs and take them through a process to make sure that whenever they are released into the industry, that they are successful. So I just wanted to give you some context in those two areas. If you talk about ESG, obviously South Africa being, we've only have actually got one major supplier of electricity, and that's Eskom. And so we are very fossil fuel bound. So coal and coal mining is still going to be with us for a long time, because of the fact is that we only have very few avenues of getting electricity. And for that reason, most of the mining houses, and I can talk about my company specifically as well, we are looking at how can we decarbonize, especially, and once again, I'm not now talking about Glencore. We've got these big furnaces. We use 3% of the country's electricity, and we convert electricity into a chemical process where we produce a product. So our carbon footprint is immense. And if we do not do something about that, we are going to sit with this challenge for a long time. So through the Minerals Council, again, there's a big focus in terms of renewable energy. How can we put in wind and solar farms? You would have seen that over the last couple of years, there's been a huge policy change in terms of uplifting of certain of these, let's call it limits, from 1 megawatt to 10 to 100, and now you can actually put in any size if you can get all the authorization. So there's a big focus in terms of converting and assisting Eskom and South Africa, by the way, to make sure that we've got enough electricity so that we don't are only dependent on burning fossil fuel. Because without fossil fuel currently, and without renewables, the only source of electricity, and I'm not talking about now burning the diesel engines and the small rapid type of electricity facilities. I'm talking about all the major power stations are fossil fuel driven. And what can we do as a country to change that?
We have
a big focus for us.
It's a big focus, it's a big challenge. There's a lot of change that is required. Let's talk a little bit about the adoption of that change. Do you want to lean in, Francisco?
Yes, no, thank you, Sanel. I wanted to consider what Jabi was saying. First, I agree with the fact that coal will be present in South Africa for a long time. So our view as NIX in Africa is that when we talk about ESG, we have a little bit also to come to basics as well. So, of course, environment is very important. I talk about green ammonia, that's a project in Chile. I also spoke about these products that can improve fermentation. That is a way of course, reducing energy in the next step. So it's a way of getting doing something for the environment. But when you talk about ESG, if we go more to basics, is really go and think about communities as well. And then I think we have to understand that, of course, it's different when you're sitting in South Africa. Well, I'm from Chile. It's not that I'm from a very developed country, nothing to do. But I'm coming from another place. And I can see and sit in South Africa and see another reality. So when we talk about communities, in our case, I want to touch just 3 pillars, but to get to my main point. So first, of course, we look after the communities where we have our production facilities. So we collaborate, we give jobs, we upskill. Second, we have more or less 60% of our people, they work in our customer sites. So we have, we supply the mines, but our people, the mining services and operation people, work in the mine and they blast. They load the holes, they prime, and they blast. So of course, then we work together with our customers to collaborate with the communities where they operate, because we are with them. But we have a third pillar, and that's what I want to touch base, that is education, and is what we call going beyond the traditional CSR, create our own brand. Definitely education is the key pillar for everything that we're talking about. And we have defined as NIX that we will focus on early childhood development, which of course we are talking about from 10 months to 5 years old kids. So just some facts: if those kids don't get enough nutrition, unfortunately they won't develop their brains as we would like, and they won't be able to contribute to society. So it's a big deal. Then, if in those years, for example, you don't have enough interaction and education at that stage, you won't be able eventually to learn to read when you're 7 and 8. And then, again, everything is delayed. So we are investing already in early childhood development. We have adopted a ECD in the close to Steelport area in Limpopo. Those are 90 kids. We're talking about a community that's far away of mining houses, far away of industrial chemicals. They're just small towns that doesn't have any support. So we thought that this third pillar was something different, because we were trying to get to support areas that doesn't have any collaboration from the industries or for the mining houses, because they are very far away, and focus on early childhood education. This ECD is particularly inside a primary school, so we can interact and upskill the primary school. By the way, we are upskilling the teachers' knowledge. We are transforming all the facilities to have a good facility, and of course introducing technology, by the way. And then the next step is primary school, hopefully do something at high school. But our dream is to have those small 90 kids, one of those kids, I hope many of those kids, to become professionals. What is today is very difficult to happen if you don't support. And because we are going to be behind, those guys probably would like to be mining engineers. And they would like to come to an ex-Africa.
There are initiatives, and then there are initiatives, and then there are the right initiatives. It's so important to choose to do the right things, not what everybody's doing, not what sounds fancy. If people can, CSI has got to be results oriented and not a fancy we like to do. So I think that's absolutely brilliant that you start right from birth, because then you set them up for the future. But a lot of what we're talking about, Christina, it's change. I mean, when Yapi was talking about the access cards, I mean, I think to myself, well, that should have been done a long time ago, right? But we're having to implement a lot of basic things. What Yapi also says is then there are the more complex things. But change and change adoption is not easy. Are you picking up in the research that you're doing that there's efforts to make sure that the change lands effectively? And what is the progress? Or is it difficult? Because we're also speaking of a sector, by the way, that's not that doesn't have the easiest people to change. These are not people that have worked in various industries. It's a narrow industry. How good are we at landing the technologies that are being put up?
Thank you for that question, and I want to answer it in two ways. I want to answer it for the change for the individual working, on the floor underground, and I want to talk about the change that we are seeing in the mining community, the mining industry. So let's take the mining industry. We are working really very hard to collaborate between mining houses to tackle big social problems. For instance, water. Where if you look at your traditional way of working, that every mining house will look at their community, and assist them. But what PwC is doing is we collaborating with the ministry, the water project, to provide water, for instance, in Eastern Limb, or and now in the Western Limb, to see how we can work together and put our powers together to make sure that the communities in those areas, are benefit from the social programs. Let's talk about change, for the individual working in the mines. I've seen a massive change. 6 years ago, they didn't want to see a cell phone. Today, they're sitting around a table and say, let's design this together with you, but one important thing is that, we need to make it easy for them. I've seen technology that's implemented that makes it more difficult, and that resistance, is higher. So from a technology perspective, we have to do things that makes the individuals work easier and lighter, and then the adoption will come very easy. For instance, if you have wearables, don't make it bulky. It must be easy for them to take it underground and so forth. And another thing from the changes, if we have this information, we need to take it into our our learnings, our education. We have to start to use technology like 4IR and start to train them of underground conditions without taking them there. The technology is there, and we've heard that there's really great initiatives underground that they are starting up for training, but we need to do more on that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And on the back of what Krishna's saying, everybody around the room has got really positive and strong things to say. But there's a good chance that we are at the ahead in terms of our adoption, our understanding, and our celebration of our achievements. So to wrap up, what would you, though, challenge the industry to do better? And I think that can be our short wrap-up question.
Well, the issue of collaborating as the industry in all our endeavors as they pertain to issues of health and safety, those issues are very critical for us to work together, because there's no issue of competition amongst ourselves. But we need to also realize that we're living in a world that is decarbonizing. And then in that process of decarbonizing our own respective organizations, we have to take into account the fact that in that process, we got to do it in such a way that is not threatening to society, and bring everyone along so that you don't get resistance along the way. And if I may, in the context of Exxaro, we have started this transitioning dating back a decade ago. And we've introduced new wind farms in the Eastern Cape. And recently, we have signed to start up a self-generating unit of PV at Grootegeluk in Lephalale, which then is going to help to produce power, which will reduce our carbon emission in the operation. So those are initiatives that we are embarking on going forward.
So it's going to be easy to demonstrate what the future looks like, so that people can find comfort in the move, from what we know to what the future looks like. In Grootegeluk, that's where I come from, by the way.
Oh.
I'm kidding, I don't. Japie, Japie, a quick one for you. I'm sort of trying to get a minute. I think we're going to make it if we do a minute each. Again, you're sitting with the CEOs on this forum, and you're celebrating a whole lot of little wins, but we need to pull more people forward faster. I can safely say that. So what would your call to action be for the people in the industry?
Yeah, Zanella, for me, it's definitely learning from one another. I mean, if you have a look at the ICMM, it's crystal clear that we do not learn from one another, and the quick wins, we do not roll it out quick enough. And if we do have certain technologies and it's working, we must actually go over to execution mode. In many cases, I believe that we sometimes talk a lot, and collaboration can be very good, but it can also be very lengthy. So in the meantime, the responsibility starts with us, and we should do whatever we can now. I mean, when we talked this morning, to talk about that we achieved 49, or a target of 49, it's below 50, it is good, but it's very, very far from zero harm. So in my view, it's fast forwarding all the efforts that we know and just working together and spearheading. And then you'll see that by doing that, you will just pull the rest along.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I love the insight. One, let's learn from one another. Let's roll out the quick wins much further, and let's cascade, what good looks like. And when you talk about those fatalities, I can feel the passion that you have for zero harm. Nobody should have to lose their life. So really wishing you and the CEOs great luck. Krishna, do you want to close off 1 minute?
I want to add to that. I mean, what we found is that in our survey is that there's a bit of a disappointment in what we have achieved in the last 2 years. The message came out that we could have done more, and it's perfectly what Japie just said. We need to push ourselves, we need to take a leap of faith, and we need to get out there, be bold, and start to do brave things. And I think this is the year to do it.
I'm glad you're so optimistic about the year. Wishing you a bullish year, like a really good one. Your closing remarks.
Thank you, Sanel. No, I think it's for me and for people that has leadership roles. I believe that we have a very important responsibility, and that has to do with people. And it's something that I learned in this particular role, and I think living in South Africa has strengthened that idea to me, is that we really have to look for the development of the people. We have, in this role, you have the capacity to impact lives in a so important way. I was talking about ECD. So you said that you take a small decision, it's not a huge, and you impact a lot of lives. We've done the same with the young professionals and also with women. So women, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is really to take a lead in the gender equality. So we're bringing more women to the industry. In fact, we have a program in which we go to the university, we take mining engineers that are just graduated, and we do train them inside the company. I was in the University of Pretoria maybe 2 months ago, and I saw, the mining engineers students, or the students of mining engineer, and 40% of them were women. Today, it's less than, I think it's 17% the amount of women average in the mining industry. So my final message is we need to look for people. We can change lives very easily in this kind of position. So we have to do it. And that includes development, that includes empower more female as well.
Thank you so much. I think we have had a very robust conversation, and thank you for adding women. We should try and add the women conversation in the beginning of our panels. It sometimes always ends right at the end. Let's not forget. I'm kidding. But to move to 40%, you're lucky. Most industries are losing women in their industry. So to get 40% to come into the pipeline, very soon you'll have 50. You're going to move above 50 very, very soon. Great efforts. Thank you so much for your time. I think it's been a fantastic conversation. This is probably one of the hardest industries and the most important industries we have that has a direct contribution to the bottom line of this country's performance. And in South Africa, we're playing an incredible role of supplying not only ourselves, but globally various minerals. So it's really a sector we have to focus in on and make sure that it remains one of the best in the world. So thank you so much for joining us. It brings us to an end of today's discussion. I'm Zanele Morrison. I want to thank my guests, Francisco Baran, CEO of Annex Africa, Mongezi Veti, Executive Head Sustainability from Exaro, Krishna Evans, Associate Director at Smart Mining, PwC, and to Yapi Fullard Online. Thank you so much, the CEO of Glencore, Ferro Alloys, and the Chair of the Minerals Council, CEO, Zero Harm Forum, who's joined us online. Thank you so much for helping us to understand this very complex but critically important topic that reduces fatalities in South Africa's mining sector. Over to you.